We are in the home stretch of college football season. Hi there, and welcome to the Buckeye Fever Podcast. I am your host, Dave Holmes. The Buckeyes are ready to play a home game in late November against an undefeated Indiana Hoosier squad. It's like I fell asleep. What year did I wake up? This really is incredible for college football. We're going to talk all about the Hoosiers and their head coach, Curt Cignetti, later in the show. First, let's talk about the win over Northwestern at Wrigley Field. First off, as far as the game is concerned, Carnell Tate was the feel-good story in college football. He had dozens of family and friends there. Not there, though, his mother, who about a year ago was murdered in a shooting. And it was an emotional time. In fact, Ohio State said they weren't even sure if Carnell Tate would do interviews after the game. He did. He graciously talked to us for a minute and talked about how good it was to see his family and friends there. To score 2 touchdowns in his hometown of Chicago with what he has dealt with, it was equally heartbreaking and heartwarming. So I just felt really good for Carnell Tate because it's hard to stand out in a receiver room of Jeremiah Smith and Emeka Egbuka, and he stood out in the game he wanted to stand out. So good for you, Carnell Tate. We love you. As far as the game, very cool spectacle. I know some people were kind of yay, some people were nay. It was awesome being there. That was my first time at Wrigley Field. First off, shout out, Press Box, best spread of the regular season. I'm talking salad bar, fresh fruit, deli tray, chicken and waffles, scrambled eggs, home fries, bacon, hot dogs, an ice cream cooler, a cookie and brownie tray, popcorn. Anyway, could go on all day about that. We love you, Wrigley. Shout out to you. My goodness. Take me out to the ball game indeed. But the field itself, very cool. Kind of a ship in a glass bottle of how are you going to fit this 100-yard field in a football or in a baseball park. The answer was very carefully, and they did. I mean, the corners of the end zones were a little arena league-ish where you take 3 steps off and you run into a board, but it was cool. Everyone got out of there. It seems fairly healthy. Good win for the Buckeyes. But now we turn the page to Curt Cignetti. And this story to me is incredible because this guy is 63 years old and is somehow the hottest, freshest thing in college football. It is not often that you are the hottest, freshest thing when you are 63 years old. He comes from James Madison, revitalizes that program. And it was kind of a small school to a big school jump, right? It was the Jim Tressel. And a lot of ADs are afraid to make that hire. A guy from James Madison. But I think when you're Indiana, you can afford to gamble a little bit more because you're Indiana. They go after Curt Cignetti. This guy comes in to Assembly Hall. All right, they introduce him there at the basketball game. And you remember Jim Tressel when he was introduced at a Buckeye basketball game and he made the comment about we're going to make you proud against Michigan 1 year from now. Curt Cignetti goes up there and cuts a wrestling promo. He grabs the mic. And he says, I've never taken a back seat to anybody, and I don't plan on starting now. Purdue sucks. Yeah. And so do Michigan and Ohio State. Yeah. That's the whole speech. The whole speech is, I'm not taking a back seat. Purdue sucks. So do Michigan and Ohio State. That was the speech. And you know what? He did hit on one very important thing. Purdue does suck. He was right. Curt Cignetti, nail to head. He was right. Here in Columbus, they probably agree about the Michigan part. We're about to find out about the Ohio State part. I'll say this, all right? I'm not going to bulletin board this. This is not something that the Buckeyes need to get fired up. He's out there on opening night trying to re-energize a program that has been lifeless since its inception. So good for Curt Cignetti. No hate. I think it was a hilarious speech. Loved it. Now he gets this new contract extension. 8 years, $8 million a year plus a $1 million a year retention bonus. So basically 8-year extension at $9 million per year. 10 games into his tenure. Can you imagine? Just close your eyes for a moment. Unless you're driving and listening to this, then keep them open. But can you imagine you're 4 months into your job, and I get it, spring football, whatever. We're talking games here. And your boss says, hey, you're doing great at work. We'd love to hit you with a $1 million annual retention bonus. I would jump up at like Kramer with the tobacco company and say, sold. But no, they say plus 8 years, $8 million a year. I mean, my goodness. Now, is he worth it? Let me work it. We look back at Mel Tucker. Mel Tucker had a similar story. He gets hot at Michigan State. They give Mel Tucker a 10-year, $95 million extension. Mel Tucker's very first game after ink to paper, he comes to Columbus and loses 56-7. Mel Tucker had the type of financial planning and timing that not even Martha Stewart or Phil Mickelson could pull off. Mel Tucker's timing was impeccable. And now Curt Cignetti signs an extension right as he comes into Columbus. I will say this. I don't see this being a Mel Tucker scenario. I believe in Curt Cignetti way more than I do in Mel Tucker. But this is a very pressure-packed game for Curt. You get all this money, all this groundswell. Your base thinks you're a national championship contender. You might be. Or you might be a 10-0 team that hasn't played anyone. Now, I think the eyeball test says this Indiana team is better than a typical Indiana team. No question. They are 10-0. Now, if I'm going to poke holes in it, their best win is 6-5 Washington. If I'm not mistaken, that's the only team on their entire schedule who currently has a winning record. Michigan 5-5, Nebraska 5-5. Their non-conference was Florida International. Not mainland Florida. Florida International. The Passport Florida. Western Illinois and Charlotte. They have played the luckiest Big Ten schedule that I've ever seen because the hard games didn't end up being hard. That said, they are clearly a really good team. So this is such a litmus test. I was trying to think back. Can I think of a time this late in the season where we were about to find out more about a team? And I cannot remember a single time in my life that there has been more in the balance from one team's reputation as this game for Indiana against the Buckeyes. If Indiana comes in and wins, they are a legit national title contender. I'll go even farther. If Indiana comes in and loses 27-21, then I think all questions answered. If they are competitive, they are a legitimate contender and they belong in the playoff. But if by some chance Indiana comes in and loses 42-10, the conversations and narrative next week will be so fascinating. Because then everyone will say, yeah, they're the same old Indiana, which they're not. And Curt Cignetti's not the same old coach. I don't buy that. All I'm saying is the narrative and the pressure and the reputation that is going to come from 4 quarters this Saturday is like nothing I've ever seen before. Coming up next on the Buckeye Fever podcast, Curt Cignetti talked about not taking a backseat to anyone. He doesn't care that he's at a, quote, basketball school. So we have our old buddy Clay Hall who's going to come by. We're going to go team by team in the Big Ten and debate, are they a football school or a basketball school? That's next on the Buckeye Fever podcast. Welcome back to the Buckeye Fever podcast. I'm Dave Holmes. Clay Hall is standing by in just a minute. We're going to play a fun game with Clay. Tyvis Powell also coming up later in the show. But first, let's hit these rankings. The new college football rankings announced Tuesday night. Oregon 1, Ohio State 2, Texas 3, Penn State 4, Indiana 5, Notre Dame up to 6, Alabama 7, Miami 8. And then it just turns into the SEC here at the bottom with Ole Miss, Georgia, Tennessee go 9, 10, 11, Boise State 12. So you have 4 out of the top 5 are Big Ten teams. Then you have, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4 of the bottom 6 there are the SEC. So it's kind of interesting how those conferences have each owned the top and bottom half. I'll say this. The bracket has Ohio State playing BYU and then Boise State if they win. And the committee just seems hell-bent on getting the Buckeyes to play these West Coast teams. I mean, this is the 3rd straight week now where they just want Ohio State to lock up with BYU and Boise. I think if you're a Buckeye fan, you'd be fine with that. I think that's about as good of a draw as you could ask for. But the thing that I really want, I wish this would be the actual final draw, even though I know Ohio State would love to have a bye. I like the Buckeyes draw here just because we have 3 SECs on the road in cold weather. Alabama at Notre Dame. That is absolutely amazing. Georgia at Penn State would be so much fun. Ole Miss at Indiana would be awesome too. But the thing is, with Ohio State, Oregon, and Indiana making up 3 of the top 5, those teams are destined to play each other twice. You have Ohio State, Indiana this week. One of them will play Oregon in the Big Ten title game. So again, love to talk about the bracket, but it's going to look totally different here in a couple weeks. All right, let's turn our attention now to the Indiana Hoosiers coming to the Horseshoe this weekend. And okay, so I don't think there's any debate here that Indiana is one of the most prestigious basketball schools in history. I would call them a blue blood, at least historically, even though the last decade hasn't been quite as kind. So to talk more about the legacy of some of these Big Ten schools, let's bring in our former sports director here at ABC6, Clay Hall. So, Clay, simple exercise here. I'm going to go through every school in the Big Ten, and we're just going to rapid fire these. Are they a football school or a basketball school? I guess, looking at one or two of these schools on the list, you might punt and say they're neither.
A couple I thought to myself when you brought this up, toss up.
Yeah, okay.
Toss up.
So we let's just cross out the teams playing this weekend. Clearly Indiana, you're going to say basketball, and clearly Ohio State, we're going to say football. We can agree on that much. Okay, so now let's go from here. Let's start with some that I think are going to be a little more obvious. You would say Michigan is a
football.
No doubt about it. And you would say Penn State is a
football.
No doubt about it. All right. Now let's get some that I think are actually somewhat interesting here.
Okay.
All right, what would you call Iowa?
Thought about this for a bit prior to our sit down. I would say football.
I would too. And the tiebreaker I think we're going to find is going to go to football just because it's so much bigger and more important to these schools. Even bad football programs are worth more to you than a decent basketball. So
yeah,
they're going to win the tiebreakers. But what about the Maryland Terrapins?
Basketball.
Gotta be.
It's not even close.
Not even close. Here's one that I think is really interesting. Michigan State. Had I asked this during the Mark D'Antonio era, you might have said football, but when you look at what Tom Izzo's done, where would you go with Michigan State? You say basketball.
Absolutely.
I think they are too.
The long-running success, whether they win another one or not, he's in the tournament the last 112 years.
Yes.
So, anyway.
Yeah. I think Michigan State at this point is a bona fide basketball school. How about, all right, God love them. How about Illinois? What's our identity with the Illini?
Basketball.
I think it is.
Yeah.
They've had more success.
I can't think of a noteworthy football achievement unless I am senile. I can't. It doesn't come to mind.
But they've had some. They've had national championship caliber basketball teams in the last 20 years. They've had a couple of them. All right, how about the Minnesota Golden Gophers? Do they even have an identity?
They had a Patino there. Football, Glenn Mason, a little of this, little of that. Man, that's a toss-up.
It's going to sound bad. They're not good at anything. Nothing of substance. All right, let's go to Nebraska's no matter what. Got to be a football school no matter what.
Volleyball.
Well, that's actually the right.
I've been waiting all day to say that. It's been a while.
You know, they sell some tickets to their
volleyball. Freddie Hoiberg. He's going to get there.
Yes. Okay, how about Northwestern? They're an SAT school.
Yeah.
They're really good at the SATs.
They've really come on of late with under Coach Collins.
I feel like
I would say football because of the success, 90s,
so
Rose Bowl.
The Darnell Autry.
Was that the back-to-back?
Is it 94-ish, 95, 94?
Darnell 95, 95 they went.
Yes.
Yeah, because Ohio State lost to Michigan and went to the Citrus Bowl.
Yes.
And the aforementioned head coach that I can't think of.
Yes.
Who I met and was an extremely engaging guy.
I guess Oregon is a football school because they are a juggernaut, but they're a sneaky good basketball program too.
They are, no doubt.
Purdue,
basketball.
Got to be basketball. Yeah. I mean, the state of Indiana in general is a basketball state.
Best comb over in the history of the world, Gene
We're talking
Katie.
Gene Katie. Oh, my goodness. That comb over. Oh, it's brilliant.
It is.
How about Rutgers?
See, I was wondering about this all day. Rutgers. It's got to be football. Schiano.
Yeah, I think.
And that wasn't a long, but that was 4, 5, 6 years of.
The funny thing is.
And they're coming back.
They are. And I think part of this is we're talking, I guess, reputation more than how good they are. Because I think I'm more afraid of Ohio State basketball playing at Rutgers than I am Ohio State football, and it's not even close. Okay, so we don't even need to talk about UCLA. They are major basketball blue bloods. All right, let's talk USC. I mean, it got to be a football, right?
Yeah.
No doubt about it.
No doubt.
And Washington, got to be a football.
Yep.
Okay. So
Rose Bowl success.
Exactly. Last one is Wisconsin. And this is another one where, based on success over the past 15 years, they're a basketball success school, but I just feel like if you go up to Madison, they care about football.
Ron Dane.
Yeah.
Alvarez.
Right.
Fickle's going to do well there. Yeah.
Yeah. So we expect the Buckeyes to handle Indiana this week on the football field. But clearly what we're saying is we fear the Hoosiers more on the hardwood than we do on the grass. Great stuff, as always, from Clay Hall. We're going to do a similar exercise now. Let's bring in Tyvis Powell, former national champion safety for the Ohio State Buckeyes. How's it going, Tyvis?
Oh, wonderful.
So with Clay Hall, we did this game where we do, is a basketball school or a football school?
Okay.
All right. I want to do something similar. I'm going to read every Big Ten school.
Okay.
And you give me the first football player who comes to mind. Okay. This is like a psychological exam. Find out if you got like sociopathic tendencies. This is a psych evaluation. I'm going to do the same as soon as you're done. I'm guessing what we're going to find out is I'm a lot older than you, and I bet I'm going to slant 90s and you're going to slant 2010s. But let's see here. All right, so ready?
Okay.
Indiana.
Shane Wynn, because he's from Cleveland.
Okay, I say Antoine Randall L.
Hey, that's a great pick, but I picked Shane because I actually know him.
Okay. How about Illinois?
Justin Hardy, because Justin Hardy also is from Cleveland, Ohio. He went to Glenville. So
if you didn't know this, Tyvis reps Cleveland pretty strong.
My guy.
Yeah. For me, it's Rashard Mendenhall.
That's a great pick.
I loved watching him run. Then he ended up being a pretty good back with the Steelers in the NFL. So that's for me. Okay, how about Iowa?
George Kittle.
Oh, they are tight end university.
Yeah,
man.
I mean, you got to pick a tight end. That's just what they producing right now, and at a very high clip. Sam Laporta was amazing last year.
And we got Luke Lachey, right?
Luke Lachey
Jim Lachey's son is there right now. He's a captain, I believe.
Yeah.
So for me, it's someone really random. Do you remember Tim Dwight?
Yeah, I met him last year when I did the Big Ten tailgate show.
Really?
He was at the championship because Iowa was in the championship, and I met him. White Lightning.
Yeah, that's what
they call him. White Lightning.
Yeah. Dwight was white, and he was an All-American. Yeah, he was a quick guy. I love how I said Dwight was white. He probably still is. I assume. I don't think he's changed much.
He ain't changing. He
ain't changing much. All right, how about the Maryland Terrapins?
Stephon Diggs.
Oh,
I got to go up against him.
What'd you think of going against Steph Diggs?
I thought he was just okay.
Yeah.
I didn't think he was like crazy or anything like that.
You thought he blew more in the NFL when he was with the Vikings?
Absolutely.
Yeah, you see guys like that. For me, I always think of Vernon Davis, just the combine warrior.
Yeah.
He was, coming out, he was like the freakish of all athletes. All right, how about Michigan State?
Jeremy Langford.
Why Jeremy Langford?
Because he's just the toughest running back I went against.
Tough to bring down?
Yeah. It would have been Connor Cook, but I played Connor Cook twice. I played him in high school, picked him off, and I was going to pick him off in college, but they called it down. They said I didn't catch it, and it bothers me still to this day.
I forgot you would have faced him in high school. That makes sense. Mine, Tyvis, you don't want to hear this. Mine's Michael Geiger.
Who is that?
Michael Geiger's the guy who made the kick in the shoe and then ran around.
Man!
I'm sorry.
Come on, man.
To me,
why do you know his name?
Okay, so you want to know this? So the reason, because
I don't even know that man's name.
Because when I was in Toledo, he went to high school less than a mile from my station. So I knew him in high school when he went to Ottawa Hills.
So you cheered for him?
Nah, not that day. That was the saddest day in the shoe, maybe in the last 20 years.
The windmill guy.
The windmill guy. He was running around like Pete Townsend from The Who, windmilling in the shoe. All right, how about Minnesota? Not a lot of big names coming out of Minnesota. Who do you got?
Marion Barber.
Tyvis, that's mine.
You picked Marion Barber?
Well, I picked the third. Did you pick the first or the second? Marion Barber, the third is mine.
I'm talking the one that played for the
Cowboys. The one that played for the Cowboys. All right, we got the same Barber. All right, how about Michigan, Tyvis? Who's the biggest Wolverine in your mind that jumps out?
Charles Woodson.
Oh, that's a good one. And
he's actually my second favorite DB of all time.
After?
Deion.
Oh, okay. That's an easy choice for you. So for me, it's Desmond Howard because when I'm 9 years old, Desmond, those teams wrecked my childhood, those Wolverine teams. Nebraska football.
It's not a lot of people there.
Not lately. That's why I have to go back. Mine's Tommy Frazier. Again,
I met him.
Mid-'90s. Like, to me, that's one of if not the best college football team I've ever seen.
I'm going to say Kenny Bell.
Yeah.
Kenny Bell was a good guy, and I actually did work with him with the Big Ten. So Kenny Bell was a good receiver. I don't know if we ever played him when he was in college. If we did, he probably was young.
This next one, I think some of our listeners might not be able to even name a player. Northwestern.
Oh, Greg Newsome.
Oh, Greg Newsome. Go Browns. Go Browns. Go Browns. Greg Newsome's all right with us. That's right. I say Darnell Autry because that was like those 90s, the Rose Bowl, crazy season. All right, there's some new teams in the Big Ten. So who's your Oregon Duck? First thing.
Marcus Mariota.
Okay, and it's so funny. So I said the age.
Tell him hang 10.
And I say Joey Harrington. So there's the age gap right there. I think Joey Heisman, you think it. Penn State.
Saquon Barkley, the best player I ever went against in college.
Is he really?
Yeah, he hurled me, Tim. I mean,
opening kickoff, right? Did he take?
No, it wasn't opening kickoff.
What? No. But didn't he take the kickoff to the house against the Buckeyes?
No, that wasn't us. That wasn't my year.
Okay,
that wasn't. I wasn't there.
You're not going to claim that.
Yeah, no, that was 16. Ain't got nothing to do with me.
Man, you passed.
I played him as a true freshman. He hurdled me as a true freshman.
Yeah,
he was one of those guys that I was like, I seen it on tape. He did it against somebody in Illinois, and I'm like,
not on my dime.
I'm 6'3". He ain't about to do me. And when he did it, I was like,
yep. Well done. So for me, it's Kajana Carter because he was the Saquon of the day back in the 90s for Penn State. Purdue.
Drew Brees.
There you go. That's it. That one's not a
I could go with Raheem Mostert.
Oh.
I played with him in the NFL. That was my guy.
Who set up like he had a zombie season last year with the Dolphins. He came out of nowhere. Okay, how about Rutgers? Drew Brees was also mine, by the way. That was a trivia question. Drew Brees is the correct answer. But Rutgers.
I'm going to go with the McCourty twins.
Okay.
You like that?
I like that. I like that. I got Ray Rice.
I mean, that's a great answer.
Yeah, he was a really good player. All right, UCLA football.
Ooh.
I have the most random name ever. In fact, I bet you've never even heard of my guy.
You know what? I'm going to go. I had a teammate when I would play for Seattle and San Fran that was from UCLA. So I'm going to say Cassius Marsh.
Cassius Marsh, yeah. I would say Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. Did you know?
That's a great answer.
That not only did Lou Alcindor, Kareem Abdul-Jabbar.
You told me this was football.
Tyvis, that's what I'm saying.
So you don't got a football game?
No, I'm saying there was a running back.
Really?
Who also, this is what I'm saying.
Oh, I didn't know that.
That's what I'm saying. So the great Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, Lou Alcindor, I'm talking there was a running back that UCLA had like in the 90s named Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. And if you just
was
say
he good?
He was good.
No kidding.
Not as good as Kareem was at basketball.
No, I mean, that's ridiculous.
Obviously. Or flying a plane.
I wonder if he got the scholarship just off of the name.
Yeah, right? Yeah, that looks good on the application when he sent it to UCLA. How about USC?
Reggie Bush.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't.
For me, it's Keyshawn Johnson, Reggie Bush. Those are the two names that just jump out to me. Washington, there's no way mine's not going to be yours. So what's Washington?
What do you mean?
Well, mine's Steve Entman.
Oh, yeah, no.
Yeah, he was the number one overall pick in like 91. He ended up being kind of a bust in the NFL for the Colts. But I think of him as the earliest Washington Husky in my lifetime.
Michael Penix.
Yeah.
I like Michael Penix.
We would have also accepted Michael Penix for Indiana. Had you said that earlier.
Said that, yeah.
He played. He showed up in the shoe.
He did. When he was in 2020.
The COVID year in the shoe.
They was rolling.
I mean, they had it going.
He was my favorite player to watch last year.
We'll finish up with Wisconsin. Which running back are you taking? It's a running back. Which one are you taking?
In my time, it was just so many. You know, we had Melvin, who was a Heisman. Monty Ball was.
Wow, I didn't even think about Monty Ball. I was going to say Ron Dane is mine, but man.
I'm going to go with Melvin. Even though Melvin never did anything against us. Mm-hmm. We really shut him down. But Melvin was a good running back.
All right, you know what? There's one school I didn't ask you. Ohio State Buckeyes. Who's the ultimate Buckeye to you? Who do you think of?
I'm out of not myself, you say?
Well, that would be that means you would fail the psychological exam if you think of yourself first.
When I think of Ohio State football, I think of Arch G. Griffin. There's no way. There's a two-time Heisman winner, best running back. There's no way you couldn't think of. Who do you think of? I'm
with you. Archie's the answer.
Yeah.
and my close runner-up is Eddie. Those are the two that I think of.
Can't go wrong with either one. But the two-time Heisman, it always going to keep you at the top of the conversation.
And then you're the bronze medal. Tyvis, you're third.
That's cool. As long as I'm on the podium, that's all that matters.
Great stuff, Tyvis. Appreciate you, man.
Thank you.
Thanks so much to Tyvis Powell. Thanks again to Clay Hall. I cannot wait for this Saturday. I have not been this hyped for an Indiana game ever. Are the Hoosiers for real? Can they come in, shock the world, and be the best story in all of college football? Or will the Buckeyes show just how far the Hoosiers still have to go? We'll find out this Saturday in the Shoe, big noon kickoff. I'm Dave Holmes. Thanks again for listening to the Buckeye Fever podcast. Like it, 5-star review, subscribe it. Some clown out there gave us a 1-star. We're trying to check the IP address to find out who you are. The rest of you are going 4s and 5s. I love you for that. So let's, try to bring the old average up for that clown. Anyway, the Buckeye Fever podcast. Appreciate you guys as always. We'll see you back here next week. We have fun stuff planned. It is the game. The Michigan Wolverines. That's next week. For now, enjoy the game.